One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. You see? Taxi. Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. The Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Chairman, shifting gears, we've just closed out this term of the United States Supreme Court. There's some notable decisions, some important decisions that will have long-standing impact on our lives as Americans. So, for example, one case, the so-called Birthright case. Birthright says that somebody comes over here on a tourist visa or jumps the border illegally, and if they are pregnant, they give birth here, that child becomes a United States citizen. And then, of course, under immigration law, that child being a citizen can kind of bootstrap the other members of the family to come in to the United States as well. Now, I happen to think the case was wrongly decided. I believe that's a total misapprehension of the legislative intent of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which created the citizenship. The citizenship was for the African-American slaves. It wasn't supposed to be for birth tourism, for people who illegally jumped the border. The legislative intent was to try to set the record straight, free the slaves, give them the right to vote, give them citizenship. That's what it was all about, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. So let's be clear, that decision was not historically based. There was a case out there wrongly decided many years ago that the majority in the court jumped on, but that had no legitimacy at all, could have easily been repudiated. That had to do with a diplomat's child. So it was wrongly decided. Now, why is that important? Because we have an invasion of illegal migrants brought to us courtesy of the Biden administration. And when these kids pop babies, they become citizens, and you fifth column within our own country from illegal migrants who violated the laws coming in here. And now you're legitimizing the kids who then bootstrap the parents in. That's terrible. And if the Chinese have an organized business of bringing in birth tourists, they have places and hospitals where they get the pregnant women to fly over here on tourist visas, and then they give birth, and then they come back to China. This is a terrible decision. So that's my thoughts on that, and I think the implications are enormous. They may be able to do statutory changes through the Congress. I talked to Professor Alan Dershowitz about that, and he thinks it's a question of redefining statutorily through Congress of what you mean by subject to the jurisdiction of. We'll see. In the meantime, this is an open-ended corridor for national security threats. Eric, what are your thoughts on that case?
Yeah, I agree. As a matter of policy, it's terrible. It's terrible as a matter of policy. The question before the Supreme Court is not whether or not it's good policy. The question is whether or not it's constitutional. And it was 5-4, I think. Or was it 6-3?
Well, it depends how you read. Well, it's ironically, it's a good question, Eric, because it's both 5-4 and 6-3. Right. Because Kavanaugh didn't go off on its constitutional grounds. He went off on a statutory interpretation. Right.
So, but I think what overarchingly brought the Supreme Court ultimately to this decision was that the amount of time that had passed since the passage of the 14th Amendment, where birthright citizenship was just accepted as part of the American way of life, for better or for worse. But to put it in terms of whether or not it's good policy or bad policy, that's not the court's purview. I do believe I don't support birthright citizenship. I would like to see it changed, but that's going to require, I think, an act of Congress.
All right. Jesse, your thoughts on that case?
This is one of those cases where a lot of these decisions that came in the last day are a mixed bag. If you're a Republican, there's some good and there's some bad. But speaking of this on Birthright, at least at the very least, it gives a path of how this is supposed to be changed. I agree with Eric. I think that because so much time has passed on the passage of the 14th Amendment, that it's almost accepted now, birthright citizenship, that the Supreme Court was doing what it felt was in the best interpretations of the case that was in front of it. It does give a clear path to Congress that they are the legislative body that sets policy, and you don't want a court to set policy. If you want to see a court that says policy, just look at any court in the state of New York that is dominated by Democrats, and they are in the super branch or the upper house of the state legislature here in the state of New York. It's partisan beyond belief. But I want to point out that while a bunch of these decisions, it's a mixed bag overall, and we'll go through a couple of them, I'm sure. They give some powers to the executive side. It gives some powers to free speech on political spending with political parties and candidates. It also ties, addresses the Federal Reserve, and it addresses birthright citizenship. Never once has a Republican or any common sense lawmaker risen up and said, we need to pack the court. We need to demonstrate in front of the homes of these justices. They didn't look to flip the table and overturn our system of government because they didn't agree with the decision reached by this body. Now, I do not agree on birthright citizenship. I believe that it should not be the case, as a lot of my brethren have done. In this case, was seeking forward. The Trump administration was seeking it. But that's the decision that came down. It gives us a path, those advocates, to change, to move forward through, a constitutional amendment itself and then amending it. And it gives us a path as it should be. But again, if this was the reverse, you would see Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, the Mandamis of the world, the Kathy Hochul's of the world, every far-left socialist that now defines the Democratic Party, calling for the packing of the court, calling for the addition of the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico as states so that they can change the balance, the ideological balance in their perceptions of the state, of the U.S. Senate, so they can change the complexion of the court itself. And we certainly did not hear anything that the Democrats have done in the past by basically invoking violence upon these justices, just simply because they did not agree with the decision that they came forward with.